rather the lack thereof. Maybe it'd be more accurate to say I'd like to talk about the offseason. Who is it that does the big free agency television panels at TSN or is at Sportsnet? But either way, I can imagine that they didn't have much to talk about. And I think this sort of seems to be the trend going forward. I think that free agency, especially unrestricted free agency, is going to become less and less important and impactful going forward. Especially as we're now getting to the point where younger players are getting bigger contracts earlier. It used to be that guys would have to sort of prove themselves and establish themselves before they got their big contract. So the free agency mattered a little bit more. But nowadays, a lot of the time, guys are getting contracts based off of potential. And your older guys who may be, been around for a while, even if they're winners, they're getting the smaller deals because everybody kind of knows what they are. And I don't think that's our fast rule. I'm just sort of talking in broad strokes here. But it seems like, I think that just the way that players are valued and what is valued and at what point it's valued nowadays means that, in particular, unrestricted free agency going forward will not be as big of a thing. And I suppose that overall it's probably a better thing for players and for teams. There's a bit more control there, but we'll see going forward how it is. I think a lot of people were sort of looking at this UFA class because we're finally sort of now out of the flat cap. That was because of the lockdown seasons, and we had the money in escrow and all that stuff, and we're finally past that, and the cap is going up quite considerably over the next few seasons. So I think there was sort of some anticipation that this free agency would be a bit explosive, and ultimately that didn't pan out that way. Although there was still some, big things, it just wasn't really UFA signings for the most part. And there's still a few things that haven't happened yet. The Connor McDavid extension being one of those. I do anticipate that he will extend in Edmonton. I just don't really know where else he would go. If he does not extend in Edmonton, I think that some people will play it off and they might try and downplay what it means, but I think if we're coming into this season and he doesn't have a contract locked in beyond this season, that I think that's fairly significant, to be honest. And also, we're waiting for the Jack Eichel extension. I anticipate that will get done as well. Okay. So I just want to talk about a few moves here. These are the ones that I kind of identified as, like the big moves, the big things that have happened thus far. I'm not putting everything here, and there may be one or two things here that you guys identify that I might have missed. But let's start with the Florida Panthers. They re-sign everybody. They have their entire core together. They got Marchand back on a deal. Then we'll probably see him through to an LDI retiring situation in 2 or 3 seasons. They got Sam Bennett back. And who am I forgetting? There's one other guy I know I'm forgetting. I want to say Reinhardt, but I know that's not correct. But anyways, like the 3 guys that were up, they extended all of them, keeping them around long term. So they're keeping that core together, I believe, or at least for the next 4 or 5 years. They have everybody signed. Looking to go and do a 3-peat back to back to back. They'll definitely be one of the favorites, if not the biggest favorite, going into next season, because they have their cup-winning team. They kept everybody together. And honestly, for the most part, with the exception of Vegas, and I may be biased speaking as a Vegas fan in this instance, it feels like nobody else really took a big swing here to try to gear up to beat them. Edmonton, who just lost to them, they, in the cup final, Edmonton, they locked up Evan Bouchard. I saw some people saying that was an overpay. I disagree. I think Evan Bouchard completely earned his pay with how he played this season. He was instrumental in the Oilers' success this season. And they also added Andrew Mangiapane. And Mangiapane will be, I think, a good piece for them. Will make them better. I still think Florida's the better team overall, and I think, I know that Jake Allen, there's a lot of rumors linking Jake Allen to Edmonton. He ends up signing with New Jersey instead. Which I thought, Edmonton obviously needs to improve their situation in the goalie spot. And that Jake Allen kind of seemed like an obvious answer there to me, but that did not end up happening. I think Edmonton did improve, but like I said, fully healthy, I still think Florida's the better team. We'll talk about the Vegas moves in a minute. Let's talk about. Let's just look at this slate here of Vancouver moves. Vancouver did a few things here, so I'll just talk about them all together. First and foremost, they received a Vander Kane from the Edmonton Oilers. This is one move the Oilers did. And maybe for the Oilers, this is addition by subtraction, I'm not sure, but Edmonton gets Vancouver's 4th round pick in this year's draft, the 2025 4th round pick, and the Vancouver Canucks get a Vander Kane. Now initially when this deal happened, I thought this was proof that Brock Besser was going to leave. I'll talk about Brock Besser in a moment. But that didn't end up happening. He ended up resigning. Vander Kane has 1 season left on that initial contract that Edmonton gave to him, and Vancouver is taking on the entirety of that salary. No retention by Edmonton, so he has 1 season left at 5.125 AAV. Then he'll be an unrestricted free agent next year. Last season, Kane did not play in the regular season. He only played in the postseason, and he had 6 goals, 6 assists through 21 games played in the postseason. Now let's talk about Besser here. Vancouver extended Brock Besser. 7 years, a total of $50.75 million. He's 28 years old. And honestly, that deal feels really team-friendly to me. I don't want to do the math at the moment, but that's less than $10 million a year. And there were some rumors that there would be teams interested in offering Brock Besser like around that $10 million mark. So I think this is a really team-friendly deal. It makes sense. Vancouver kind of has this core locked up now, because they extended some of the other guys they had as well. Notably, Connor Garland, who I kind of thought they would have traded. I know he's kind of been, there's been back and forth about whether or not they want to stay with Connor Garland, but they end up re-signing him. Then Thatcher Demko, who I'll talk about here in a moment, but so I think maybe looking at those moves, maybe having some of those was, what's the word? The front office basically, telling him that what they're looking at doing and him seeing them make the moves to keep that core together, convinced him to stay. Now, overall, this UFA market, I think Brock Besser was viewed as one of the top UFAs on the market. So the idea, I think, was that if he hit the market, that he would earn a pretty big deal from somebody. They'd probably be a little bit of an overpay just because there wasn't that many options out there. And then coming into this offseason, it almost looked like he was destined to hit that market. But at the 11th hour, they lock him up long term, and looking like he'll finish his career in Vancouver. Now, he's not hitting the highs he was a few years back, but this season he had 25 goals, 25 assists. Now, Vancouver also locked up Thatcher Demko, 3 years at $25.5 million. He's 29 years old. Speaking as somebody whose team has been completely brick-walled by Demko, I can tell you that when he's healthy, he's like a top 10, top 15 goalie in the NHL. He can just turn on the jets and completely shut down an entire team, but these last couple of years, last 2 years or so, he's had a hard time staying healthy, staying on the ice. Now, earlier in the year, Vancouver also locked up Lincoln. Both their deals run until 2030. So Vancouver has their goalie tandem for the foreseeable future completely set in stone. No surprises there. And that pretty much, I think, does it for the big moves Vancouver did. Another team that I've on here multiple times is the Rangers. Let's talk about everything the Rangers did. Just recently, this just came through a little bit before I started this video. The New York Rangers traded Keandre Miller to the Carolina Hurricanes for Scott Morrow, a 2026 first rounder and a 2026 second rounder. Miller is 25 and Carolina extends him. They give him an 8-year, $60 million deal. Morrow is only 22. The tea leaves, though the wind has kind of been blowing this direction for a little while now. It seemed like Miller was very discontent being in New York. And the fact that they got back Morrow, who's a good young right shot D-man, is probably good for the Rangers, especially the picks they got as well here, because sometimes with those players, when they're that, rearing to leave, it can sort of dampen their value a little bit. I think Miller immediately slots into Carolina's top 4, if I had to guess. But Carolina has an extremely strong defensive core overall, as does New York. I think both teams here, this seems like a win-win deal in my opinion. And then, speaking of defense, the Rangers also signed Vladislav Gavrikov, 7-year, $49 million deal. He's 29 years old, so this takes him to 36, maybe a bit longer than you would like, but he'll be good for I think at least 5 of the 7 years on that deal. He'll be serviceable, be a good he should be a top 40, for some of those, and then maybe start being that last pairing there for the last few, maybe 7th D the last year. He's a left shot defenseman, and he's one of the best pure defensive defensemen in the NHL. Lockdown guy, stay at home guy. And I think that's a good compliment to Adam Fox's game and how he plays, being focused more. Kind of yin and yang type situation. The Rangers also extend Will Coyle, 2 years, $7.8 million, 23-year-old left winger. Last year he played 82 games, had 20 goals, 25 assists, so good, I think good move there. They get that middle 6 good scoring option, young player as well. Get him on a 2-year deal, see what he is, and then maybe you give him a 6 to an 8-year deal at the end of that. So that is the Rangers. Now the only move of these moves that I feel is a bad move. This one is Boston signed Tanner Jeannot to a 5-year, $17 million deal. I feel like they could have gotten him for a lot less. And this guy is, I don't know, you look at the Boston roster, you look at Pasternak, and you kind of look at, I don't know, this just feels weird. He had 13 points in 67 games last season, and he can't score. He's not a good passer. He's kind of just a big body. He's sort of an enforcer type, old school physical guy. Gets in fights, and it just feels like this isn't what Boston needs at the moment, especially for this. That could be one thing if you got him on a 5-year, $8 million deal or something like that. I don't know if that works out, but you know what I'm saying? If you just paid him a lot less money than this, because he's going to be a 4th liner, 3rd liner maybe, and I just don't see the value here for Boston. This feels like a really bad move. The Kings signed Corey Perry. I just made note of this here, obviously, because we have the trend of Corey Perry going to the Stanley Cup final and then losing. And so maybe that's why the Kings signed him. They thought this would punch their ticket to the Stanley Cup final. You know, they've lost to the Oilers, what is it, like 3 years or 4 years in a row now at this point in the first round. So maybe they think signing Corey Perry, they'll get past the Oilers. Maybe they think they'll make it to the Cup final. The Kings made some other moves as well. I actually think the Kings had a pretty decent offseason overall, but this is the main one I just wanted to pay attention to here, is them signing Corey Perry. And then Anaheim has had a sneaky good offseason. They signed Mikael Granlund, 3 years, $21 million, 33-year-old center, really good playmaker. I think he'll immediately slot into that second-line center spot that Trevor Zegras was in before they got rid of him. He had 66 points last season, 60 points the season before, so even though he's 33, he's kind of, if anything's getting better. He's getting better, not getting worse. I want to talk about my Vegas Golden Knights. Some big news there. Obviously, the big one is Mitch Marner traded to Vegas 1-for-1 for Nicholas Waugh. Now I feel a multifaceted feeling to this. I have said many times that Mitch Marner is my favorite player from that core Maple Leafs group. Mitch Marner was always the guy I liked the best in that group. I think Marner's an elite playmaker, 100-point guy. You know, and obviously people say in the regular season, and he struggles in the postseason, and I'm not going to discount that, because that is a legitimate concern. I just think that the expectations, the pressure in Vegas compared to Toronto is night and day, and I don't think he'll have the pressure to be the guy in Vegas. I don't think he's going to get an alternate, at least not for a little while. He's not going to be a part of the leadership group. That's Stone, that's Eichel, that's Carlson, probably Smith now that we've extended him for a year. That's Theodore, that's McNabb. You know, and so I don't think he's going to have to, Marner's going to be any part of the leadership. And I think that'll be really important for his ability to thrive in Vegas. You're not looking at top 6. You have Eichel, you have Stone, you have Marner, you have Hurdle, you have Carlson. I'm big on Dorofeyev. He's coming up. I think we have a lot of really good scoring options. I think Vegas is a really good top 6 forward group. And then you have Theodore, you have Hanifin as our 2 best defensemen there. I think Whitecloud will take a big step this season as well. McNabb He's always a steady presence. I think this is a really exciting move for Vegas. The only issue really is all of our best players are all pass-first players. And Nicholas Waugh is honestly sort of like the perfect consummate fourth-line center, bottom six guy. He played better than his position. He was a constant, consistent force. I'm a huge Nick Waugh fan. He was always, he only really had one or two. He was good for one or two, like, bad boneheaded penalties or brain farts or something a year, but other than that, he didn't really make mistakes. He had good scoring potential for a bottom six. So I think Nick Waugh will be missed. And we did the Nashville deal, sitting out Nick Hague and getting Sissons, and I believe, we got Sissons and Lauzon. So there's your bottom six there. The replacement for Nick Waugh. But yeah, I'm really excited for the Marner deal. Sissons and Lauzon is kind of take it or leave it. Nick Hague, I like Nick Hague. He never really reached the levels that coming out of the draft we hoped that he would. We kept hearing about his offensive upside. We just never really saw it. So maybe in Nashville he'll be able to, turn that around, make that a reality. We'll see. But this is all spurred on by the fact that Alex Pietrangelo is going on long-term LTIR, probably likely retiring. From what I read, he has to have both of his femurs surgically reconstructed. So he has 2 years left on his deal. That's the sort of thing where, like, just being able to get yourself back up to being able to walk again is tricky after surgery like that, let alone, being able to play a professional sport. So I don't think we'll ever see Alex Pietrangelo on the ice again, which is a shame because he provided that veteran presence and leadership. And I'm glad we were able to get him a second cup. He was one of my favorite guys on the entire team, if not my favorite guy on the team. And I feel like we definitely don't win our Stanley Cup without him. And the nice thing is if hopefully we win one the next 2 years, he still gets a ring and he retires as a 3-time Stanley Cup champion. It should be really nice. But as a Vegas fan, I'm really excited to see what Mitch Marner can do, because, like I said, he's my favorite from that Leafs group, and now he's a Vegas Golden Knight, and he's wearing his number 93 from when he was a London Knight. It's a nice little connection there. Anyways, guys, I know this isn't every move, but if I did every move, I'd just be sitting here talking dollars and cents and not much else, and that's, I don't think, a very good video. So thank you so much for watching. I do hope you liked it. If you did, please leave a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more content just like this every single week. Till next time, everybody.